to really ask you, because I know that, and a lot of Brazilians here present know that too, but you come from this very beautiful career as an actor, very well known in Brazil, and then this is your first project that you signed as a producer. So I wanted to know what sparked that and how this collaboration happened.
Look, I've always had a feeling. I was in the closet when I started. When we started shooting this documentary, I was still in the closet in Brazil. I've been a gay man my whole life, but I've been in the closet until 2022. And that was mainly for two reasons. One of them, I wouldn't be able to work as an actor if I was out, and also it was about survival, about protecting yourself and not being exposed in that sense. So when I was in this, so Pedro is a journalist, he's a director, and we've always had this conversation. We met during an interview for a women's magazine, and he had to ask me all those questions like, what type of women do you prefer, blondes or brunettes, or like what do you like to do with women and all that. And it was a very uncomfortable interview, and at the end of that he came to me and said, I have to apologize, I'm so sorry to ask those things, it's just the magazine wants me to ask. And I was like, well, I have to say I'm so sorry that I couldn't answer because I can't. Would you like to have a beer? And I was like, yes. So we went to have a beer and we became very close friends. And we've always talked about this, like my process of coming out. Should I come out? When should I come out? I don't know. Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose everything? I don't know what to do. And then at some point I decided to come here. It was 2020. I was like, you know what? This is it for me. I've had been through rough times in Brazil. I couldn't keep on living the way I was. So I was just like, I have to leave. And when I left, everything changes. When you leave your country and when you leave your work or your bubble, the perspective is different. And I was like, well, maybe that's not the end of the world. I can be gay, I guess. So we've been in touch, me and Pedro, about this all the time. And when this film came, he told me something that it was interesting, that it took me a while to really understand, but it was like, well, maybe that's how you start paying your debt to the community. And that made a lot of sense to me in a way, because I've always pretended to be a heterosexual man and using all the privileges of heterosexual man. And I had a voice and I had a power and I had an attention, and I never used it towards people like me. So in a way, this film is the beginning of my process of making peace with my sexuality, and also trying to use this kind of attention that I had to try to do something for the community and for people like me, or not like me because I was protected by pretending I was straight, but people like Erika or people like Malonguinho, who were there, exposing themselves in the front line of the battle, trying to change society, trying to do something better. I was afraid to come out because I was afraid to lose my job as an actor. These people are in the street giving their lives and faces to be, to try to make a difference. So it was immediate, like, we have to do this, and we're going to make this film. And we had no funds, we had no support. It was 100% private film. It was 2020. I was in LA, I was producing from here, and I was able to put 5 people into a doblô, which all the Brazilians know. It's like a small car.
It's in every production.
Yeah, exactly, because you can put the cameras and 5 people inside, and it's just like, and we started making it. And I think it was my first step towards really embracing myself and my homosexuality.
Yeah, and then when the film premiered, it was, a film about these revolutionaries, but also was your kind of revolution.
It was a little bit, yeah. It was a little bit of a statement in a way. It's just like I was this whole different person in 2020. When the film came out, I was out publicly. It was a big scandal in Brazil. A lot of press.
Was it? Oh gosh, okay.
Well, I don't know if it was a big disappointment or if it was just, but it was a thing. You know, I've done 14 years of telenovelas. So for 14 years, one after the other, in 14 years of Globo, I've done 12 telenovelas. That means that for 12 years, I was inside people's home every night. Doesn't matter if it was at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., or 9 p.m., but I was inside their home every night. So they felt like they knew me. So when I left Globo and I came out, and I told them one of the reasons I couldn't come out was because of Globo, that had always told me not to, you know, it became kind of a, you know, the press took it as a, yeah, it was a scandal. It was talked a lot.
I imagine.
And you know, it's the times we live in, and social medias and everything becomes a viral or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But then I suppose, you know, things now in Brazil have changed.
Well,
think
they did.
has changed.
They did, yeah.
And so I think after, you know, 3 years, they see you different.
Oh, totally.
They forgave you.
Oh no, the country's different, and I used all the attention I had to promote the documentary, which was great.
Yeah.
Every time I was like, my name was connected to Corpolítica or political bodies everywhere, so that was actually kind of a perfect marketing move without any intention.
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting because it's a film that, you know, evokes this theme about representation and what representation means, but also what it really means in how you're using representation for. And when we see this, you know, we see like all these characters that are being, you know, assembled for representation in Brazil in for councils and, you know, the state elections that happened that year. But then we see the other part of representation, right? Like how representation needs to be something political and how we need to discuss it that way. Because otherwise it kind of like seems like, oh, it's about representation, we have someone placed there, it's a black person, it's an LGBT person, so we're good. But this film really evokes in a moment that I think it was very important, like it's not just about representation, it's how we're facing that and how we're placing that.
Yeah.
Was that something that it was always clear from the start in this project?
For sure, absolutely. We've always talked about this, you know, like that was the time when everybody was like, oh, let's make sure we have a queer person, or let's make sure we have a black person, but they were always an extra, like hired to be there behind whoever is actually making the decisions. And that's something that, you know, she talks a lot. Erika says this a lot. It's not about, you know, having 2 black women here in this Congress. It's about who's the person making the laws, who are making the decisions. Because otherwise we're just extras, you know, just serving as a decoration to your theater, but they're not really making the decision. So it's always, the film has always been about that. Can we make laws? Can we create laws? Can we actually make a difference instead of just occupying a chair just because of number or because of, so that was always, the biggest question in that sense for this film, and that's why we have a crew that is 100% queer. This film was done only by queer people, written by queer people, produced by queer people. There was everyone in the team was queer, and they were very much part of the creation process as we were. I mean, the 4 characters, because we wanted to make sure we show them the way they also wanted to be seen, and not just the way us as an outsider wanted to see what they were doing.
And I know that 5 years ago, that was not common.
No, it was no. There was a problem actually. We couldn't find a photographer.
Exactly.
We couldn't. There was.
And now I know that's
exactly. Yeah.
But I also thought it was interesting to include people like holiday, you know, like even I love how it's like, oh, feriado, like he didn't say that.
Feriado, I love that.
And this other, forgot his name because I don't keep their names, but who ended up being, homosexual at the end. So I thought it was important to also include those voices, because then representation becomes this also political discussion about what it means, you know, in politics, institutional politics.
Yeah.
Was that also something that...
I think so, right? When you talk about a documentary, it was like, okay, we're supposed to be impartial. We're supposed to show like all the sides. And yes, we do have queer people being completely mistaken in their speech or being right-wing or not really caring for your community or your rights, and just following some kind of economical excuse that he uses in that sense. So we wanted to show that as well. It's like, wait, that's when we talk about representation. Okay, we have that queer people, but are they fighting for something for the community? Are they really representing the community, or are they just there following somebody else's path and just not doing anything for their own, or making their own life more difficult, which is, for me, is the case, which is absurd. I cannot really understand. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to put that, and that was quite confusing in the beginning. We didn't know how to edit that. When we brought those characters, we were like very confused if people would understand that we were showing them on purpose just to see how wrong they were. Mm-hmm. A lot of people was just like, but why did you put him? Like, he's not helping. I was like, but that's what I'm trying to show. So in a way, as a documentary producer, filmmaker, we try to show both sides and show that even inside our community, we're so different, we're so vast, we're so big, and we have so many different interests that sometimes you have conflicts inside the community.
Yeah. No, I think that's the kind of perspective that we need to also have as a whole, to really hear those two sides. Before I open to the audience, I would love to make this a conversation. Just a question, because hope has been a word that we've been bringing up lately, even more than before. And I wonder sometimes what it means, today, like in the present. Like, hope, is it because we're trying to think that the future is not going to be like we're facing the present, or, if we really believe that the people who are fighting are actually going to achieve what they're meant to. But being here, Marco, in Brazil, I think we moved almost like in the same time. Yeah. I was wondering also just how you see this different perspectives of, being the community, LGBTQ community, between Brazil and the US, if there's a difference that you see at this moment. I know it's clearly, but
I don't know if there's a difference in the community. That's a difference in, the shift of the government for sure. But when we talk about hope, I feel like when I made this film, I had no hope. I really thought it was just like, there is no hope, especially when you get into politics. You're like, there's never going to be representation. Erika was the most voted woman in 2020 as a councilman, vereadora. She's a deputada estadual now, deputada federal, sorry. She's in the Congress. She's had 3 laws approved already. She's hope for me. When we end the film and say, are we ever gonna, I think she's a power. She was one of the most influential people on Forbes last year. She is hope to me, for sure. And it takes time. And I feel like, every movement of expansion, there's going to be a reaction of contraction, right? So when we get the left wing and we try to expand the right and make it, there's going to be a reaction, which is what we're living now here in the US. Which is the opposite of what we're living in Brazil. So we're living the reaction moment where all the white, privileged, cis people were like, oh, we don't want to lose it, let's just cut it back. But I feel like if every expansion movement is a little bit bigger than the retraction movement, we're moving forward. And I feel like we do. It's very hard to bring hope into this scenario in the United States, but Brazil is giving me a lot of hope right now.
Yes.
When I see what's going on there, not just politically, but culturally, in every way, it just gives me hope. And I know that the United States is a country who will dictate whatever's going to happen all over the world. And I think we're going to have a right-wing reaction in Brazil after this government, for sure. And they're going to try to retract. But if we're able to expand just a little bit more than we're retracting, then little by little, we're going to get there. Mm-hmm. Are we there? No, we're far from being there. But hope is all we have to get there. Yes. And making this, as an artist, is what can you do? Is just denounce, show, try to change people's mind, try to touch people through their heart and change. But hope is all we have.
Thank you. That's the reminder I needed to listen to. That's why
I was like, does anybody understand what I'm talking about? I'm just like, boom.
Someone has a question?
Okay, I have many questions, but I will only ask one, I promise. But first, thank you for this. It's a powerful film, timely, important. I think you don't owe anything to the LGBTQ plus community because all of us have our own process and our time. And you and Marco Pigossi, you have done beautiful films about our history, queer history in Brazil. So I love High Tide.
Thank you.
So my question is, we mentioned Clodovil and Fernando Holliday.
Yes.
And I don't know if when you're finishing the movie, the documentary, Eduardo Leite, governor of Rio Grande do Sul, was already out, publicly out. No?
No.
So would you consider, if you are doing that film right now, would you consider interviewing him? Or?
Yeah, sure. Look, so there was a record of candidates, right? Openly queer candidates. Eduardo Leite wasn't running on the municipal elections because he was already at the elections, right? He was already for mayor. So he wasn't officially out. I think he came out and he ran in 2022 when the film came out. And a lot of people talked about him. The thing is, this was 2020. We had zero money. I made this film with 75,000 reais. And this was all private. All we could do, all this I could do with this double and this 5 people crew and the camera I had was in between Rio and São Paulo. Mm-hmm. Eduardo Leite is not, right? He's in Minas, right?
No, Rio Grande do Sul.
Rio Grande do Sul. Yeah. So we wanted to have more candidates. We wanted to have more characters in this film. We wanted to follow all of them. That the film started with, let's talk to all of them. But we couldn't because of the pandemic and because of costs. So at the time, Eduardo Leite wasn't at the center. He was 2022, but definitely he would be a person that we would love to talk with. But we couldn't get out of Rio and São Paulo because of financial things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Would you make a sequel?
I am making a sequel, but it's not about politics. I'm making a sequel. It's not a sequel, it's a sequel to me. It's my second documentary. I am shooting at the end of the year a documentary about LGBTQIA plus refugees in Brazil. So we have a very, very modern law in Brazil to receive those people. Also, homophobia in Brazil is now considered a crime. You can go to jail because of that. So it became a very interesting, like a country for refugees, because we have a very strong legislation to protect them and their lives. But at the same time, we're still the country with the highest rates of hate crimes against queer people in the world. So this contradiction is something that I'm investigating on this next documentary. And it's kind of the same format. We follow 5 refugees that come from different places in the world, one from Iran, one from Africa, Mozambique, one from Venezuela, one from Turkey, and we're still struggling to find the last character because people come and go and they are also afraid. It's a theme that, in this case, they wanted to be in a documentary because they wanted the attention, because they wanted to be seen, because they wanted to be elected. In this new film, I'm struggling with they're very scared and afraid of being in a film because they don't want to be seen, and especially they don't want to be seen in their countries because that's where they flee from. So that's the challenge with this new film. But it's just a sequel for me in my mind. It's a whole different film, but that's the one I'm producing.
Hi.
Hi, Rumi.
Hi.
She's my ex-roommate.
I was just thinking, I have a theological question. For example, the base, the nature of everything is one passage, 2 passages in the book of Moses, and I think of Paul in the New Testament. That's it. So everything, all of the roots, come from that, which is incredibly, incredibly beautiful. So I have a theological question. For example, the base, the nature of everything is one passage, 2 passages in the book of Moses, and I think of Paul in the New Testament. That's it. So everything, all of the roots come from that, which is incredibly, incredibly crazy.
Okay, that's Greek for me.
No, that's the thing. I'm just trying to pinpoint. I want to say, bring their root to you, their hate, where the hate came from. Their hate, why they're so entitled to like gay should not exist, LGBTQ should not exist, because of that. So in my opinion, why some of the representatives of the heads of this movement doesn't study theology and then reply them in their language? Because, let me finish, because the God of Israel made the laws only for the people of Israel, only for the Jews. And Jesus is the Jewish Messiah. So it's only for the Christians. They're like, okay, Jesus is for everybody, but they're not an Islamic state. So you can't make anyone to be Christian. That's apostolic tradition. So you can't kill anyone. You're gonna be Christian. That's Islamic thing. But Christians don't do that. Jews, the law of Moses, you shall not sleep with another man, or you shall not dress as woman, and blah, blah, blah. It's only for the Jews. It's not for the rest of the world. And the Christians should not kill anyone in order to make them be Christians. So in definition, those laws, it's only for them. It's not for the world. And what they do, they want to manipulate their own book. The root of all of this came from saying that, oh, we're gonna prohibit, this is abomination, we can't have that, right? So why don't you guys, in the head of your thing, study theology and then reply them with their own root, with their own book?
Okay.
The Bible.
Yeah. It's very interesting when you're not a part of the community, or when you don't actually see society as it is, because you said many times, why don't you, the head of your organization? There is no us. There is no organization. It's not. Do you understand? Where people are just trying to survive. There is not really an organization. We're showing that in the film. There is queer people who believe in right-wing things and queer people who believe in different things. There is not really us to talk to them in their language. Also, yes, I think one of the biggest problems is when you bring religion into the Congress, because then they feel like they can justify their laws towards their book or whatever they think is right. But at the same time, it's just such a shallow place to come from, because not all hate comes from religion necessarily. It just comes from the different. Or it comes from losing your privilege, or the fear of losing your privilege or your place. I don't think hate towards the community is only about religion, but it's also about the old cis white man trying to keep power more than anything. So I don't think the answer is just towards the book or the Bible or how to convince them. It's just they don't want to lose power. They're not necessarily using the Bible to justify their hate. They're just being hateful because they think they can. So I get where you're coming from, and I agree. I think maybe it would be very interesting to create an organization where we can study the Bible and try to talk to religious people towards their own language. And that's a very smart way of seeing and putting it, but it's not all religion in that sense, specifically when you talk about politics. So that's a very complex conversation you brought up.
It's the root of their hate. It's what they used to make. God is on our
I think
side.
hate doesn't come just from religion. Hate comes from fear. They are scared. And they're not scared because the Bible said they shouldn't. They're scared because they're losing their place. They're not seen anymore. They're not valid anymore. We're questioning them. We're questioning their choices and their acts. And that's what makes them scared. And they use religion as an excuse.
Yep. So imagine if you were the theologist and then you use their own religion to say, no, you're wrong because
yeah, I know.
used
Well,
their
tell that to the Pope.
Then
The new Pope. Tell them, hey, tell him, say, hey, can you change that, please?
And
So-
we know there's a lot of people who are religious and they're still, and they still have this questions. They still have this situation. Like there's gay people who are very religious.
Yeah.
Can I say something about this?
Yeah.
Okay, a few years ago, I dated a gay evangelical pastor, and he leads queer affirming church. So there are many queer affirming churches in the United States that question theology. Like, for example, the first time that the word homosexual came up in the Bible, it was after World War II. The word that was used before was not bad. So there are churches doing that, but they don't have the same power. They don't have the same access to TV and politics as the mainstream.
There must be going to some challenges over there.
I think in the important phrase was in the end the documentary. It's about God is above all. All. Independent your religion, you're independent. God is there and we are important. Just that.
Which is exactly what she's saying. They use this as an excuse to justify whatever atrocities they...
Yeah, but not excuse.
If it is,
They are there and we are here and we are the same.
Too bad it was used so badly.
Yeah, it was misused.
Which reminds me of a phrase that I told you that it really impacted me. I think it was the name of the actress. I forgot her name.
Renata?
Renata,
Yeah.
yeah. That she said how they put trans people as devilish bodies and how they say that we're not judged, we're already guilty. And I think unfortunately religion also had a place on that of like really making this embodiment of these people as something wrong, devilish, something that we need to like condemn. And that condemnation and all those words, they all come, from this Christianity that our society was based on. So
Because people think I'm better than you.
yeah,
I have something to say on that too, because I think there's a paradigm shift that in Christian circles is not going to happen. So if we study their language and we talk to them, we're speaking in terms they have yet to understand, right? There's a pastor that is progressive, right? But not everybody thinks that way. He's going to start using. We're not playing with the same deck of cards, right? That word coming into the Bible being a mistranslation, that argument won't work on them, right? Just like the book of Moses, that argument will not work on them. So Thomas Kuhn talks about like a paradigm shift that like for scientific revolutions and things like that. So we're working with words and things that are not yet understood to them. And maybe I think the ironic thing is one day they will come back and say we were always right. We were the ones, right? Christians were the ones that were on the cutting edge of this when no, they didn't accept that language yet. And yet I think they're going to take credit for it. I believe that's what happened with slavery, the issues, and a lot of different things.
which is very interesting because a lot of the characters, Erika Hilton, Madonguinho, I mean, they brought their religion into politics as well. Like they're not Christian, they're Candomblé, they're from Umbanda, from these religions that came from. Oh, let me make it done. Yeah.
Because that is a liberation. That was part of my process of coming out as well, when I understood that there were other religions and that they don't work with right or wrong or sin or the idea or the concept of sin. That was a liberation for me as well. I was raised Christian. Brazil is a very Catholic country. And when I started learning about Candomblé for the first time, it was a complete liberation. I was like, wait, there's a God who is both sex, like, it's not wrong. I'm not never going to hell. Like, my actions can be justified, even though, of course, there is the concept of doing the good and doing bad for someone, but there is no concept of sin and temptation. And so that is part of, and I really believe that that's where you find strength to really be who you are and try to make a difference in that sense.
Yeah, and I think that change in Brazil a lot. Like we're talking about different perspectives in that matter. And also here in the U.S., we hope that can be something.
Which is not a
else.
Christian country, I don't know.
Huh?
It's not a Christian country. They can't even use that as an excuse.
Yeah, which is insane. Yeah. But at least we got some good news today, right? We were having fun on Twitter and
Yes! It's a lot of fun.
We're out of time. No more. No, one more. Just is it okay? The last one.
Sure.
If it's a short one, could we?
Sí, perdón por meu sotaque gringo, so I'll stick to English. I work in politics, and there's this fascinating program here in LA. It's called the LGBTQ Center, the LGBT Center. You know about it, right?
Yes.
Well, they have a whole program in the center. It's about deep canvassing. And so in politics, you go to people's doors, and they've evangelized people and had these extensive conversations, talking to people and engaging them on issues on the street, their doors, about LGBT politics, about a whole range of issues. It could be a really fascinating mini doc or doc. And I was also curious, as a sort of Lucifer, why wasn't David Miranda included in the film?
Because he wasn't running.
Oh, he wasn't running?
No, he was alive,
Right.
but he wasn't running at the time, and we didn't really see because his political career came after when we shot, came after 2020, and there was no his husband. They weren't even a thing. So we didn't see a look. There are a lot of people we talked to, for example, a lot of artists. We talked to Caetano Veloso, Gilberto Gil, because he was a minister coacher. But in the end, we didn't see a reason for them to be in the film. It was just something like, okay, let's bring someone to talk about this. But it didn't make sense. So I think David wasn't yet in the fight. He came in the fight later, and unfortunately his career was very short. But he wasn't in the picture at that time. And so we didn't see a reason for him. We should have, though. It would have been a beautiful document, because I couldn't imagine he would be elected then and then would die so young. So.
Well, we have to wrap up. Thank you so much for coming, Michael. Thank you. We can't wait to see the next one.
Yes, I'm right here.
Thank you.